So I am so in agreement with you, Reverend Alba. When I read this passage, I was like, oh my gosh, there are so many big gems and little gems in here. There's so many things to wrestle with and think about. And I kept thinking about them. I had a really busy week this week with the Nonviolent Medicaid Army. So I found myself, I just kind of kept rereading the chapter some and thinking about it. And I too was sort of drawn to a story. So I really appreciate what you shared about that. I kept thinking about the use of stories in general in this text. And Jesus, we know he's talking about ending political and economic oppression, that they've, just come into Jerusalem. I was reading in the last week, it described as a city of hope and a city of oppression, a city of pain and a city of joy. And I thought, wow, it kind of just, I live in New York City. That kind of describes this sort of empire that I live in. And yet he's talking in these stories, and he's talking in stories that the religious leaders are not getting and are really in many ways kind of not intended to get, but they are in terms that the people understand and that are reflecting their experiences and that the people can identify with. In the Nonviolent Medicaid Army, we understand the power of stories, of people's personal stories of struggle and oppression while they're just trying to get the health care that they deserve as a human right. Jesus used these stories to connect with people, and we use stories to connect with people and help people connect to a movement that is working towards a revolutionary and lasting transformation of society. Just like you were talking about, Reverend Alba, something that we are building together, that we are coming together to do. And stories break the isolation, right, that keep us apart, and they build power. I also just could not let go of the text. It's super often quoted in Mark 12, 29 to 31. So when Jesus prompted, is what is the greatest commandment? And he says to love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your mind, and to love. And then he says to love your neighbor as yourself. There are no other commandments greater than these. And, Jesus is talking about our neighbor, that same neighbor that he references earlier as the stone that's been rejected. The same neighbor who no one else is listening to, who, like us, is being marginalized and by society because of poverty, because of our race, because of our sexual identity. He is talking about loving that neighbor and us all loving each other. I kept thinking about that love. I kept thinking about the 24 million people who were cut off Medicaid during the Biden administration, and the millions more that are facing being cut off or losing some, if not all, of the vital services they're receiving because of these 880 billion cuts to Medicaid and 230 billion cuts to SNAP that are being proposed by Empire, right? They're being proposed by the people who built the temple that's 40 acres in size. And people are outraged over this. And they're outraged of all of these cruel acts that continue to come out of this particular ruling class. And we have a right to be angry. We have a total right to be angry. But to paraphrase what the modern day prophet Nishmi Zarenko just said to us yesterday when we were having a 7-hour working retreat, she said, if we don't love our class with the same intensity that we hate the systems that oppress us, then we are failing. We are not living up to what Jesus has called us to be. So I really appreciate this moment to get to talk a little bit about the Nonviolent Medicaid Army. Our focus is study, struggle, and support. There are many ways that you can get involved. We would love to hear your story, your healthcare story. We invite you to attend our Saturday School of Struggle. We hold these on the first Saturday of the month. So our next one is next Saturday, is April 5th, which I know is a day of action, but we see study and coming together as also being an important action. And this particular one's on the political organizing around Medicaid. You can email us at NVMA, and please follow us on I always feel funny saying this. I think I'm getting old to say this, but please follow us on social media, on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. It's Nonviolent Medicaid Army. It's a great way to connect with us. And Reverend Alba, I wanted to come back to sort of one of the last things you were saying about birth pangs. I so agree with you. I feel that these are the birth pangs of a revolution of people who are coming together. And it's scary. But as it says in a passage I was reminded of this week in Hebrews 10:39, we are not among those who shrink back and so are lost, but we are among those who have faith, and therefore we preserve our lives. So just in closing, thank you so much. We struggle and we organize, we lament, and we organize. Thanks so much for having me tonight.